Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Burning Ones. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 16, Shiny Rocks. It has been 11 days since the devastation of Nova 17 and our retreat to the Fractal. The human Rapid Assault and Recovery team has remained here for reasons not entirely apparent. It is possible they are investigating this location and the Xeno pirate ship which has been harassing the Fractal. In regard to Mark's admission to me that numerous human ships have gone missing recently, I was initially surprised that the humans did not call home for rescue. They also have not seemed deterred by the loss of their ship. I can only assume that the majority of their gear and personal effects were aboard the Nova 17. Unsurprisingly, the sheepdogs are quite resilient and do not seem to need much to maintain themselves. What few items they did need, they had fabricated, scavenged, or bartered for with the crew. Even having lost their ship, these soldiers carry items on their person which are not essential to use for trade and barter. Don explained that, in addition to personal items which they can use as currency, the battle armor contains a compartment filled with specifically selected items which soldiers have found useful for barter on the intergalactic stage. In this instance, the sheepdogs could have freely acquired almost anything they needed simply by asking. The crew of the Fractal is absolutely fascinated with them, and honestly, I cannot deny my place amongst the number. This brings to mind another strange trait. These humans are generous. They frequently give material aid and assistance, sometimes using personal resources to do so. They give their attention, their time, their food, whatever is requested, and typically attempt to refuse any kind of recompense. They often must be cajoled, goaded, or begged to accept even partial payment. Yet when they personally want something, they do not seem entirely comfortable in receiving the same kind of generosity which they display and insist on paying. The giving of personal gifts, however, seems to be an exception to the social practice. When offered small trinkets, bits of delicacies of someone's homeworld, or poorly rendered likeness produced by a fledgling, shiny and colorful rocks and so forth, these humans quickly and freely accept gifts. I witnessed Breaker enthusiastically accept an utterly unidentifiable but colorful drawing intended to be a likeness. As he placed the drawing in a compartment under his heavy pauldron, I noticed he had many of these doodles. That's what he calls them, stuffed inside his armor. I assume surely such items from beings outside of one's nuclear family unit would be discarded. Given that the happiness he displayed continued after the child left, I believe Breaker legitimately treasures these doodles. I cannot imagine Allison in the sheepdog's position. She would be miserable without all of her personal comfort items. She has special cups, one for tea, one for coffee, allegedly so that her tea doesn't taste like coffee. This confuses me because cups are cleaned and sterilized, and because I've seen her create a cocktail of chai tea, soy milk, espresso coffee, and glucose. She has been an adult for many years, yet she travels with a stuffy, and some nights sleeps clutching the representation of a furry bear. I wish I could explain that when she has nightmares, it is not a child's toy bringing her comfort. Shadow doesn't seem to mind, though. I think he finds the behavior endearing. Perhaps it reminds him of the little girl he watched over. I believe, though of course I can't be certain. I have seen Shadow subtly warming to the toy bear and making its little brown eyes sparkle when Allison is sad. The arrival of our 4 new humans was, naturally, quite shocking to the crew of the Fractal, but it was much more disruptive to the members who can see the 4 Guardians. I was able to convince them that having lived with Allison, I knew these creatures, though quite imposing, was safe to be around. By the end of the first week, I think most of these crewmates learned what I learned. The Burning Ones are focused on the humans and show little, if any, interest in things not directly relating to their charges. I think this is quite strange for Mark. He was not aware that anyone besides a minority population of augmented humans are capable of viewing the world as I am able to see it. He seems uncomfortable that others can see ghosts in the rest of his team's guardian angels. I think it is possible Mark views me as a potential threat, and things have been tense between us. But he treats me with respect and bearing one can expect from a fellow soldier. Captain Garant, though initially caught off guard by the sudden arrival of 4 new people, quickly adopted and allowed the humans to take over running our defenses. They are our experts, he said, and he would be deferring to them. Sevie, the human woman who functions as a communications technology specialist for the RAR, is also a drill sergeant and was assigned to help me whip the crew into fighting shape. I have to say, I saw these drill sergeants in film and I was horrified by their training methods. I couldn't imagine how a novice soldier could learn to do complex tasks while being shouted and berated. Sevie is kind, warm, friendly, and completely terrifying. When she is working as an instructor, she changes. It is like she is a different person, screaming, barking orders in a completely different voice than she speaks with. It works. Despite her verbal abuse, the crew members she trains want to impress her and strive to do better. Kuzev shed 2 tentacles on the first day, but even he is up to snuff now as a wartime communications officer and has learned some basic weapon skills. Now that they are trained, our gun crews are accurate enough to deter the phage boarding parties. The phage are opportunistic scavengers, and when faced with a fierce enough defense, will retreat even though they have even greater numbers. This has given our repair crews enough respite from the battle to reconstruct our hull where it was destroyed in previous skirmishes. Here, Piker has shown up once again as a surprisingly valuable crewman. A look at his personal file shows that Taika was employed as a loader, a job requiring little skill and much muscle. Even in some low-G environments, no other skills were listed. With Breaker, who is fluent in galactic sign language, and the other sheepdogs who are proficient enough to communicate basic information, we've been able to communicate with the Corian and found that he was certified on his homeworld as an engineer. However, our sledgehammers and largest wrenches were the only tools he was capable of holding, and therefore would be unable to assist with repairs. Breaker deemed this completely 100% not cool. He worked through the night rotation and on into the late morning to fabricate and modify a full set of tools for Taika. Taika was always good-humored and kind, but I can say now with certainty that he is happy. When Breaker presented the tools, Taika was quivering, literally vibrating with excitement. Taika and Breaker spoke with their hands. I do not believe many words were exchanged, but it was clear from their faces that in this movement they each felt truly known by the other. Taika handed Breaker something small and then immediately went to work on repairing the exterior of the ship. He returned to the launch bay every couple of hours to refill his lungs, but never stopped to rest. Taika worked so fast and at such a high quality that the repair crew chief instructed their team to spend their time simply assisting Taika. They carried the supplies and equipment, handed him tools, and positioned hull plates while he fastened and welded. With the right equipment in his titanic hands, Taika was a master craftsman. I was overjoyed Taika could finally practice his trade, but I worried, as did others, that he would work himself into exhaustion and injure himself. After he had worked for the first 2 shifts without respite, Breaker told me that the Kokor has an 86-hour rotation period, and our 9-hour shifts were nothing to Taika. As we spoke, I noticed that Breaker had a small, glittering uncut gemstone or crystal mounted on a wire around his neck. This is not unusual human adornment, but this item seemed unique. So I asked him where he got it. Breaker clearly treasured the stone. He smiled and caressed its surface idly as he told me the story. Taika had gifted it to him as a gratuity for his labor producing the tools, and he had chosen to make a necklace out of it. I believe Breaker received all he wanted and more when his labor made it possible for Taika to do what he loved, to practice his trade and live a full life. I wonder if he knew the Kokoran rough diamond that size was worth enough to purchase a penthouse flat on one of the core worlds. Still, what are priceless diamonds when compared to love? End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Sevaren Serberous, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Casper Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Sevaren Serberous. Thank you very much.